All right, welcome inside the IKS Media Studios. It's time for SJHL Insider for Thursday, October 31st. Happy Halloween to those who celebrate. It's an exciting day across the league. It's a no game day across the league. But, it's Halloween. Teams are getting out, getting into the communities. I know that some teams are doing some trick-or-treating stuff tonight, so should be a good night, should be a fun night. Stay safe for everybody who is going trick-or-treating. Should be a lot of fun. Today on the show, we're going to recap the last couple of days across the SJHL. There's been 4 games and 1 postponement, so we'll talk about that. We're going to dive into the standings and get a little bit more of a deeper look into where teams are at right now. And we're going to also take a look at the SJHL Fantasy Hockey League and see where we're at in terms of myself, Rory McGoran, Jamie Neugebauer, and the IKS Crusaders. So that should be fun. We'll check that out a little later on in the show. And we're going to be joined by head coach and general manager of the Yorkton Terriers, Emery Olauson, who has been through a lot in the last few weeks. And we're going to catch up with him and see what's coming out of the Parkland region as of late. First, we're going to thank our sponsors, of course, and we have to start with Cantera Seeds, Borgo, Capital Auto Mall, SGU, Sask Lotteries, UPL, Chevrolet, Great Western, Nutrien, RBC, and Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, who we'll be hearing from later on in the show with our Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association coaches interview with Emery when he comes in. And we're going to bring in now Jamie Neugebauer to the show, voice of the Notre Dame Hounds, of course, co-director of media with the SJHL here at IKS. Jamie, there was a postponement for you, so you only had 1 game, and you're supposed to have 2, but you were joined by the great Jacob Faith as your color commentator. Can you talk about that a little bit before we dive into the games?
Yeah, it was very gracious of Jacob to come on. It was relatively last minute of him as well to come to the dunk tank in Wilcox last night for the Notre Dame L'Orange game. And you mentioned the postponement. Don't need to spend too much time on it, of course, but the Hounds were supposed to play the Kindersley Clippers, what was supposed to start 4 games in 5 nights, in fact, for the Hounds on Tuesday. But there was some Zamboni issues, I'll say, in Wilcox. And so they got them all fixed and ready to go for the game yesterday, and everything's fine. But, they needed to call it relatively early because, of course, the Kindersley Clippers were planning to drive 4 hours or whatever it is from Kindersley to Wilcox, and you can't have them, coming all that way for nothing. So they had to call it relatively early, whether it was going to happen or not. They decided to reschedule it to be determined when that'll be. But the Hounds did get 1 game off.
There you go. And there was also a broken pane of glass the day of the game, too. So, stuff's going on in Wilcox out there. Wow. Let's dive into the content here, the real reason we're all here today, and it's time for the Prairie Proud Hat Trick. Again, big shout out to our friends over at Prairie Proud. I can't wait to get the gear that they're going to be sending us because I want to be wearing it here on the show. It's exciting. I know they have some really great stuff that I've heard is on the way, so looking forward to that. Topic number 1 is going to be a recap of the last couple of days here. We're going to start with Tuesday, of course, and here's the recap here of Tuesday night's games. There was 3 games scheduled, and we only got the 2 because of, as the aforementioned, postponement. I'm assuming there is, we're going to get the graphic up. There you go. Melville skated away from the Centennial Arena with a 3-0 shutout victory over the Nipawin Hawks. And L'Orange got a 7-4 win over Humboldt, a big one there. On Wednesday, again, postponement there, of course. On Wednesday, Melfort got a 3-2 win over Flin Flon at home at the Northern Lights Palace. And then L'Orange, Jamie mentioned, was in Notre Dame and got a 3-1 win. We'll get into that in a little bit. Let's go back to Tuesday's games here. And again, we're going to start with the 7-4 game, the L'Orange-Humboldt game. It was a high-scoring affair on Tuesday night at the Elgar Peterson Arena that included a hat-trick by Cole Thomas, a 4-point night by Mason Buchert, a 47% performance by 20-year-old netminder Logan Falk, as they skated away from Humboldt with a 7-4 victory. 27 saves by Ty Matanovich, and Oren Olsen got his first goal as a Bronco. But Jamie, what did you see in that game?
Yeah, I mean, Rory was mentioning there was a good crowd in Humboldt, but I think there was a little bit of tension, anticipation. From what I saw from the Ice Wolves, and also just speaking to Kevin Kaminsky before the Notre Dame game, he was talking about the buy-in to the little things that the L'Orange Ice Wolves were trying to preach all year long, and I saw a lot of those little habits and those little details come out in Wilcox, and I'm convinced that the Ice Wolves did similar things in Humboldt. And one thing, the first thing that I thought about, and I always think about, you go on the road, you're not always the favorite what are the two boxes you need to check first? The first one is goaltending. Well, Logan Falk and Graham Brown, and maybe we'll get to the Notre Dame game next, but both of them had a wonderful week. And then the second thing is special teams. Well, guess what? 9 of 10 penalties killed over the 2 games, including only 1 power play goal, and that was an absolute torpedo by Trey Fouquet of the Humboldt Broncos in that game. So, yeah, the Wolves with a 7-4 win. It was not the prettiest hockey game ever, but they don't care. They're going to take it, and Kevin Kaminsky felt like the buy-in level was starting to get there for the Ice Wolves, and good to see, because obviously Kevin Kaminsky and those guys are terrific guys.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll talk about it in a sec, but don't look now. L'Orange has a 2-game little win streak going on. So L'Orange is one of those teams. I mean, Rory talked about it before the season even started, that he thinks they were a non-playoff team from last year that could sneak in this year, and they definitely aren't out of it, and we'll talk about that in our segment about the standings. But yeah, they're a team that has some pieces there that if those guys get hot, the right guys get hot, Logan Falk in net, like they have some pieces that they could go on a little run here and make themselves a little bit more of a playoff firm spot in the standings.
Yeah, and a couple things there. One is they have a very strong first line that is really connecting, and when Mason Buchert is going and putting goals in and putting up points for L'Orange, they are a different animal. Like, it is a lot of pressure maybe on him, but that's just the way it is. But his line with Tonkin and Normand have been very, very good lately. 4 goals and 12 points in the 2 games for those guys. Mason scored a goal yesterday, getting offense from Rylan Silzer. And I think about, Clark, the difference between this year's L'Orange team and last year's L'Orange team. And, last year they had Parker Layton and they had Liam McInnes for a lot of it. And obviously those are 2 elite, offensive defensemen. But this decor for L'Orange, unheralded maybe, but they know who they are. They just stick to their jobs. They do their work. They just hoover shots. They block shots as well as any team in the league right now, and that was a big key. They led by Rylan Silzer, of course. But not the oldest group, pretty young group. Rylan Silzer is the only 20-year-old, but they play hard and the right way, and kept things simple and made the saves savable for the most part for Falk and for Brown the next night. So kudos to those guys, and 2 games in 2 nights. Second night being in Wilcox, especially for a L'Orange team that plays on small ice, not an easy thing. Did they have a great game? Was it a barn burner yesterday? No, it wasn't, but Ice Wolves found a way, and the Hounds didn't. That's the bottom line. Yeah,
I mean, young guy Nathan Da Silva's having a nice season for them. Dmitry Toporowski was a nice little ad for them.
Yeah, he's young too.
And he's also at 06, so he's 18. And so, I mean, they've got some guys. I wouldn't be surprised. Kevin Kaminsky's always the kind of guy you always kind of just keep an eye on, just in case there's a move coming in here. You never know. He could come out of nowhere and make a couple of moves too, and just kind of strengthen that roster. Let's move on to the 3-0 game, Melville over Nipawin. A spectacular 33 save performance from newly added goaltender Nathan Clayton for the Nipawin Hawks just wasn't enough, as Melville was able to shut out the Nipawin Hawks at the cage. 3-0 with goals from Simon Perini, Ryan Rothke, and Jaden Iogan, as the Melville Millionaires continue to hold strong at the top of the standings. Big night for my fantasy team too, with Rothke and Iogan and Doug Johnson as my coach. So I got a few points from that game. But Nugsy, what did you see in that one?
Yeah, well, first of all, just an outstanding goalie duel between 2 young goalies. Obviously, Melville got Luke Brunin back at the right time, given potential injury there to Loic Morin. And pretty structured game on both sides. Not a ton of great scoring chances outside of power plays. But, Nipawin's got a good one in Nathan Clayton. Speaking to Clayton Jardine, his coach in Kindersley, he really liked Nathan Clayton. There just wasn't games now with Cody Jamin back. And Clayton had a great, U18 career, minor hockey career. So it shouldn't be a huge surprise to anybody who knows the kid. So really happy for him. A lot of people are, I'm sure, to get the opportunity, and we'll see if, Corbin Schnurr can grab some too there in net for Nipawin. But Tad Kozin was really happy with the way that the Hawks played in the third period against Notre Dame on Friday. And I don't think they played poorly today or yesterday, I should say. or that game, I should say.
Yeah, Tuesday.
Tuesday, pardon me.
What day is it?
I'm all befuddled. But you know, at the end of the day, a couple power play goals. Ryan Rothke, the fourth player in the league now to hit double digits in goals. And yeah, I mean, last thing, I'm sure it's, you know, ancient history to some degree, but for Doug Johnson, anytime I'm sure he goes back into that rink with Melville, it still actually means a little bit extra for him. And so I'm sure to get the 2 points. But two young goalies doing well. And Caden Drury, another point, which means only one game all year still with 0 points for Caden Drury, who continues to be maybe the most dominant forward in the league this year.
Yeah, I think clearly he's right up there if he's not an easy candidate to just lock it in.
Yeah.
We're going to move to Wednesday now. Again, the Notre Dame Kindersley game that was postponed, so that's why we're not talking about it, of course, if you missed out on that.
Yep.
Wednesday night, after Carter Anderson opened the scoring early in the second period for the Flin Flon Bombers, the Melfort Mustangs stormed back with 3 goals in 1 minute and 17 seconds. Usually that's a good formula for a win, Newsy. And they did win on their way to a 3-2 victory. Owen Nelson, Nolan Roberts, and Nolan Patterson scored for the Mustangs. And newcomer Leighton Carruthers got his first point with the Bombers late in the third period. Christian Coombs got his 7th win of the season, and he's firmly in second place in the league now in wins behind, we just talked about Kindersley's goalie logjam. He's behind Brett O'Halloran for Kindersley. So, Nugsy, 3-2 win for Melfort.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird night in the Northern Lights Palace. You know, beautiful power play goal to start off the scoring for Carter Anderson, and obviously you get him set up in that with that left shot on the right side, the one-timer on the power play, and if they can make it work, he's not going to miss too often, and he had an absolute bullet. But then a bizarre goal to tie it. In the second period there, just a collision in front of the Flin Flon bench where they're injured Flin Flon players. Were the Bombers hoping maybe that the ref would blow it down? I'm not really sure, but it seemed like the Bombers just kind of stopped playing and the Mustangs didn't. But you know, the Mustangs didn't care. It was a nice one-timer goal. Owen Nelson, you know, dish and then get open and then, you know, one-timer, and it was a beauty. And then maybe it rattled the Bombers a little bit, that whole situation that, you know, maybe they were hoping that the play would be blown dead, but you have to play to the whistle. Sloppy change on the winner as well for Nolan Patterson for the Bombers on a 2-on-1, and a torpedo by Nolan Roberts, and that's all she wrote. Hard to blame, you know, Kenny Marquardt for any of the three. And I'm sure, you know, Flin Flon at least happy to get Leighton Carruthers in the lineup. 3rd overall pick in the QMJHL draft a couple of years ago. You know, just didn't really work out, even though he had a lot of Q games under his belt. But you expect that line with Piccinino and Anderson and Carruthers to be serious business in the SJHL. And yeah, we'll see what happens with Matthew Keeper, who hasn't played yet for Flin Flon, even though he's been there. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Mike Reagan trying to get these pieces together and try to make some moves. You know, he sent Montgomery Parsons as well away to the MJ, and so there's a bit of a shakeup in that locker room, and that's, you know, something I'm sure is intentional to shake things up, but also take some time for them to gel. So, you know, again, the Northern Lights Palace is a hard place to go. Again, the Bombers didn't play bad. They just came out on the wrong side of it.
Yeah, and, you know, where have we heard this one before? The Flin Flon Bombers add a guy who's had a lengthy not WHL, I'm thinking of Justin Lees here, but a lengthy major junior career, bring him in his 20-year-old year, he lights it up. I feel like this has happened before.
Yeah.
Why do they keep getting away with this?
It was a nice setup by him on the ringer goal there, the second goal too. Yeah. So I'm sure he'll make a big impact.
And I mean, he's only played the one game, so let's. I'm not going to say he's necessarily going to be what Justin Lees was for them last year, but it's a good addition, I think. Now, I just wanted to say this really quickly. A lot has been said about Flin Flon's record, and we're not used to seeing them having this type of record at this point of the year. It's still early enough that we're not writing them off or anything, but it is weird to see them. I'm just pulling it up on my computer here. To have a 6-9-1 record after 16 games, but. I just was looking at their schedule here so far to this point. Yes, they started off the season playing Nipawin, and they've played L'Orange twice and Notre Dame once. But the rest of their schedule so far, again, we've talked about their losing record. It's been a tough schedule. Melfort, I'm just going by the teams I didn't already list. Melfort, Yorkton, Weyburn, Estevan, Melfort, Weyburn, Yorkton, Humboldt, Melfort. And they play Melfort later this week.
Yeah.
So it's like, yes, okay, you know what? Maybe we're seeing maybe it's an anomaly that they're 6-9-1, but they've also played basically, I mean, Estevan's not there yet, but they're a solid team. They've basically played the top 4 teams. That's it. So maybe for those criticizing or saying stuff about Flin Flon now, while they have a chance to, maybe just be careful with your words, because again, they've had a very strong schedule so far. Now, a lot of those games have been at the Whitney Forum, and they probably would like some of those points back, I would guess. If we asked Mike Reagan right now, I'm sure he would say, yeah, we let a lot get away from us. But just give it a minute. We said Reagan's, tinkering with the roster. He's had a lot on his mind with the whole World Junior Ace Showcase stuff coming up and all these things coming out. Sorry if I spoiled anything there. But he's got a lot going on, and just let it all kind of settle down. Let it all settle. We've said it lots. As soon as Flin Flon starts rolling, I have a feeling they're going to really start rolling.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. As I said, what they do with their goaltending situation, these guys need to gel. And to further your point, another level, after what happened last year, CJHL Coach of the Year, the way they dominated, and just the way the Bombers are with the kind of aura, the mystique around them, every team that they face circles that game and says, we need to bring our A game, our playoff game tonight, because it's the Flin Flon Bombers.
Absolutely.
And Mike Reagan wants that. And that's the way it is.
I think most coaches would.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because as I've said to Mike and many people, I don't think there's a more iconic junior A anyways franchise, maybe even junior franchise in North America than the Flin Flon Bombers. So, they get everybody's A game. It's like the Maple Leafs. And it's a situation, too, you think even Nipawin and Notre Dame games, for example, Tyson Endall almost stole it for Nipawin. And Spencer Borsos, that was actually a quite even hockey game in Wilcox.
Yeah.
Both of those guys were wonderful in that night, too. So, yeah, they always get the other team's best. Still very early in the season if you're a Flin Flon fan. We're just a month and a bit in still. There's still lots to go. There's 56 games in the season. Think about it. We're 15 games.
That's a lot of games.
They're at 56 games total. So long way to go. Leighton Carruthers, I'm sure, will be dominant once he gets up to speed, and it'll be interesting to see.
And Keith Gruner's been out.
Right.
And
he'll be soon back.
Carter Anderson was dealing with an injury early. Blah, 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 blah. Right. I'm just saying, I think, the strength of schedule has been an A+ so far. And let's just see what happens when the schedule evens itself out a little bit, and we'll go from there. We'll go from there. Let's move on to your game last night. The LaRange Ice Wolves captain Rylan Silzer scored 2, and Mason Buchert added 1 early in the game as the Ice Wolves snagged a win on the road. And Wilcox, who got 29 saves, you mentioned Spencer Borsos a second ago, 29 saves from Spencer Borsos in the loss. Graham Brown had 38 saves in the win for the LaRange Ice Wolves. Nugsy, what was your breakdown of that one?
Yeah, I mean, from a Notre Dame perspective, frustrating that the Hounds didn't start playing hockey until maybe the 58th minute of a 60-minute hockey game. They were just sleepy for 58 minutes. They hadn't played since Friday. So, Jacob Faith on the broadcast mentioned this whole sort of rest versus rust question, because, of course, LaRange played the night before up in Humboldt. And then, as I said, go to that big ice surface. But Graham Brown, he made save after save after save. The Hounds did some good things. They got lots of chances. The power play looked crisp. They were getting shots. They were getting chances in front. Ian Biors hit the post. It wasn't a bad performance by Notre Dame. The goals that they gave away were quite self-inflicted. I mean, Rylan Sills with a beautiful end-to-end goal. But again, it was a goal that the Hounds kind of fell asleep on, and the first goal, Bar Buchert, was a turnover that turned into a 3-on-1. So kind of a sleepy game. Rory mentioned again, the Humboldt LaRange game seemed like a sleepy game too, and the Ice Wolves, they just eat pucks. Their commitment to blocking shots, even on that big ice surface. And on one hand, it takes two to tango, of course, as Jacob Faith was saying. The Hounds weren't moving the puck fast enough. But Kevin Kaminski wants his team to play with guts and nuts and all that, and getting shot lanes and whatnot. And they found a way to win again, and Graham Brown and both Spencer Borsos and Graham Brown were great. And again, last thing, happy for Damian Metastasio, really nice kid, to get his first goal in the SJHL on a very nice feed from Hudson Kerr. And but still, if you're Notre Dame, frustrating that you have to wait 58 minutes. If you're LaRange, you find a way to win.
Yeah, absolutely. And we already talked quite a bit about LaRange in the last recap, so I think we're good to go there. Let's move on to our second topic here of the hat trick. And of course, we're going to look at the league standings. As a whole, as of today, this was after last night's games, of course, the Melfort Mustangs continue to lead the way with 22 points. Melville at 21, right behind them. The Weyburn Red Wings have skyrocketed up this list. They haven't played in a little while. It feels like they haven't played in forever, but just because they haven't played this week yet. But they are at 19 points after their surge. The Kindersley Clippers are at 18, just one overtime loss away from Weyburn. The Humboldt Broncos and Battleford North Stars are tied at 17. Yorkton, 16. Of course, that was after all the forfeitures. If they didn't have those, they would technically be tied for first right now, with 3 more wins on their resume. And the Laurent Ice Wolves at 15 points round out the playoff teams as of today. The Flin Flon Bombers are at 13, just outside that mark. The Estevan Bruins, with way fewer games played than anybody else, sit at 10 points. Notre Dame at 6 and Nipawin at 5. Nugsy, does anything stand out for you here as we look at the league standings?
Well, the first thing is I got to ask Jason Tatarnik if he keeps doing this on purpose. Because I feel like every year the Estevan Bruins always have tons of games in hand.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe it is on purpose. Maybe it's the way that scheduling is at Affinity Place or what. But I got to ask him, and he's always been generous with information and insights. So I'm sure he'll tell me. And if you're the Weyburn Red Wings, you probably just want to get back playing as quick as possible because they've been playing such good hockey. Obviously, we put them in the first spot in the Source Embroidery Power Rankings this past week for the first time. I cannot remember the last time a Weyburn Red Wings team, maybe never in my time in the SJHL, first overall in the Power Rankings. So, and they deserve it 100%. 2 great goalies. We've talked about them a lot on the shows, but so those are the 2 things: the Highway 39 rivals in Melfort and Melville just duking it out back and fourth for first place, but first to 8th, 7 points and 1 point between each club. We talk about parity a lot. Well, there it is.
Yeah, it's crazy. And you know what? Just the fact that we mentioned Larange's last 2 games this week, while other teams have been dormant, not playing, Larange just snuck into a playoff spot this week. So it's that tight right now. And like we could see, like we said, we just talked about Estevan. They have 5 games in hand on Larange. So they win a couple of those, all of a sudden they're in a playoff spot. Flin Flon gets hot, all of a sudden they're back in the playoff spot. So like you said, We'll take out the top 3 teams, but there is 8 points between 4th and 10th right now. That's a good week.
Yeah, but as you said,
Yorkton just went on a good week. They had 4 games. They got 3
right.
wins. So that's 1 week away from any of those teams to pop up in the standings.
And they could have probably won both in Kindersley too,
right?
Possibly. But the last thing that I'll say about the standings is Rory mentioned it actually on the show, but I'll echo it again because you mentioned Larange sneaking in there to the playoffs.
Yeah,
is that these 1 to 10 teams just keep beating each other.
Yes.
Nipawin and Notre Dame, you're getting in trouble. Like, it's early in the year, but like it's getting into the danger zone already for those 2 teams if they're going to make it serious. And I do love that song. And I posted a video of Hudson Kerr's feed to Riley Rich Holden, the goal that Riley scored in Nipawin. And I played that Danger Zone song behind it. It's a great song.
Solid tune.
There you go. Danger Zone, Notre Dame,
Solid
and Nipawin.
Tune. Let's look at the division standings. And within this, we also have their past 10 records. So again, I joked around last week because I didn't realize that those numbers in the middle there were past 10. So if you're listening to this on the podcast platforms, obviously you're not sure what I'm talking about, but we'll go into it. If you're watching right now, it shows the team's division standings: Viterra Division, Sherwood Division, Nutrien, and in there is also their past 10 games record. So the reason for this is we look at trends. We see how teams are doing in their last 10 games. Are they moving up? Are they falling? One that stands out to me, obviously, and we just talked about them, the Flin Flon Bombers right now, 3-7 in their last 10 games, whereas the Melfort Mustangs are 7-3, for example. One that stands out to me, look at that Nutrien Division, Nugsy. They're all winning. And like you just said, with Notre Dame right now, it's like, okay, guys, like we're already getting to a point now where it's like, we've got to start putting some wins together because look at those 3 teams ahead of you. Now, again, division standings don't reflect playoffs. Not anymore. That's out of the picture. But it is interesting to see because you do play those teams more often, generally, than the other teams. Battlefords, they've been surging. They're 7-2-1. That's like the quietest 7-2-1, and it's nothing against them. They've been winning their games. They've been playing great hockey, but it's been kind of just like the other teams above them are getting a lot more recognition, it feels like right now. And maybe we're sleeping a little bit on the 6th place Battleford North Stars, but they're 7-2-1 in their past 10. I look at a team like even Humboldt and Kindersley. When are they going to take that next step? They're 6-4. You take that over 5-5 or 4-6 or whatever, but 6-4, you're not gaining a ton of ground. So when are we going to see Kindersley or Humboldt maybe take a little bit more of a step? Larange, 5-5 in their last 10 games. But we just talked about it. They won their last 2. So that almost feels good right now. You know, they've moved up in the standings with a 5-5 record. So it's just interesting to see some of these numbers. Obviously, Yorkton's, you see, it stands out just because it says 3-7 in their last 10. Obviously, that's with the forfeitures in there. That's within the 10-game window. So we'll get into that more. But Nugs, does anything stand out with the division standings?
Yeah, I just want to talk about Battleford's quickly.
Sure, yeah, let's do it.
You mentioned the 7-2-1 there. Those 2 losses of those 7-2-1. One's a Saturday night at the Elgar Peterson Arena. Rory's made a lot about that.
Yeah.
How the Humboldt Broncos seem nigh unbeatable on
Saturday
nights at the Elgar Peterson Arena. It's kind of this weird, funky thing. And then what's their other loss of those 2? It's at the Northern Lights Palace against the Melfort Mustangs, whom I've talked about as being the best team in the league still. You know, I'm sure Weyburn and Yorkton and Melville have arguments with me about that, but it is what it is. But there's the 2 losses, and that is since Marty Smith, took over as the coach. They've done a great job. I think the leadership, we've talked about it, Jackson Allen and Rylan Williams and Jordan Grill, they've all just been wonderful in that locker room. Interesting goalie situation now in Battleford's, given Justin Merrick is back, as is Logan Cunningham. Who
I might have missed that one.
Back, and so we'll see, what happens with him.
And they have Matthew McArthur.
And they actually got a lot of veteran goalies sitting around, and they have the other one, whose name Connor Bombach as well, the Red Deer kid that people are very, very high on as well in net. So, the Battleford's North Stars, it is all looking hunky-dory in Battleford, and it just goes to show that if you get the details right, the system right, the leadership right, yes, they've played a lot of games at the Access Communications Center. Yes, you can only win the games that are in front of you. So there you have it. But they find a way to win by hook or by crook. They got some really good young players, thinking about like Lincoln Fisher as well, the year that he's having. And Nikita Ivashenko's as underrated as they are in the league too, one of the best players in the league. So, they got pieces. They find a way to win hockey games. They are a good story. I love it.
Now, one thing I will just mention, I don't know if we need to dive into this too hard, but I'm just seeing that Logan Cunningham's WHL rights were traded to Tri-City a couple of days ago. Is there anything going on there where he might not be with Battleford's very long, or is he just kind of there for a short stint? I don't know. Do you know?
Well, I'm going to Battleford's tomorrow, so I'll get the
Marty,
full scoop.
Let us know, Marty.
Marty Smith, not Marty
Smith.
Martinson.
Yeah, sorry, Marty Martinson. Probably. He might know though.
He might know.
He might
have a number of somebody who knows.
You never know. Let's look at topic 3 now. This one's for fun, of course, but it is the SJHL Fantasy Hockey League results as of today. We had a quick last-minute switch because I didn't have a shutout counted in my score. So I'm sitting at 136 with Team Moneymen right now. Jade Nyogin's leading the way for me. We'll get into kind of maybe a couple of team leaders here in a sec because Ryan Rothke is tied with Jade Nyogin at 16, but it looks like Team Nugestradamus is holding strong. They're doing okay at 125 points. There's a couple of players you probably wish had a few more points for you, but that's every team. The IKS Crusaders are dominating right now. They had Caden Drury second overall, of course. They got guys like Logan Belton right now with 19 points, Jacob Causette. The big one for them was their last overall pick, Dustin Renas, with 20 points, who has more points than almost any of our players on any of our teams.
Yeah.
And he was their very last overall pick, so that was a sneaky one. And you know what? We all kind of blew it on that one.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. We all blew it on that one.
Well, we talked a lot about it. Like, which of the guys on Yorkton
is going to blow
after Jaron Denoyer is going to be their big point guy because they have so many of them.
And in fairness, as I look down the list, Denoyer was the first overall pick by you, of course. And then Jeff Hammond was selected. And then as we keep going down, Ethan Farrow was selected, a Yorkton Terrier. And then as we keep going down, let's see here. Who else got picked? Oh, maybe not anybody else.
Well, Keenan Ingram is in there. But
Keenan Ingram's there now. Yeah, exactly.
Late last pick, obviously.
Yeah, he's my last overall pick. And
Jai Zawatsky maybe is on the mystery team.
Jai Zawatsky for sure. Now, if we could bring up the list the scoreboard one more time, the results board. Rory's team.
Yeah, we're supposed to be the quote-unquote like insiders, the analysts.
Yeah.
But Rory and I are in second last and last.
Now, what I will say about Rory's team is he's doing He has a good roster. It's just that they haven't started putting up a ton of points yet. I think of a guy like Anthony Piccinino. He's only got 7 points right now. That number could be a lot higher.
We all have good rosters.
Edward Gauthier, he's been good in net, but he could probably have a few more wins under his name. Carter Cormier was a big pick for Rory, for Flin Flon. Hasn't started kind of piling up those points yet. So, Carter Anderson, we all thought might be running away with the scoring title already. Hasn't quite gotten there yet.
Yeah.
So I think Rory's number is going to go up, and he's going to get some players popping off pretty soon. I have a feeling. It just hasn't happened yet, and that's okay.
Yep.
But let's move on now. Just a quick one before we get into our interview with Emery Olauson of the Yorkton Terriers. I figured let's just look at the leading scorers of the Yorkton Terriers. We're talking about them just now. Of course, Jaron Denway right there at the top with 22 points. Had such a great start. Has that slowed down a little bit points per game wise? Yeah, but when you get off to a start that he got off to, that's not sustainable.
No.
As good as you are, that's not sustainable. Dustin Renas is having a great surge right now. William Leonard has been great all year long, just consistent all the way through. If Jeff Hammond could just stay on the ice for a little bit longer, because he's on my fantasy hockey team, 14 points in 8 games. That guy is a point machine. He just needs to get on the ice and stay on the ice. Keenan Ingram, that big trade acquisition from a couple weeks ago. Vinay Junek is having a great rookie season. Tyler Palin's having a great rookie season with 10 points. Thomas Reese is having a great rookie season with 10 points in 15 games. Aiden Knutson's that solid veteran guy, that presence in the forward group with 9 points right now. And then you mentioned Jai Zawatsky having a nice solid season as well, 9 points in 13 games. We have Emery ready to roll. Yes, gentlemen? I think we do. Yes, I thought we did. So let's bring him in now. We're going to have our interview now with head coach and general manager of the Yorkton Terriers. We've talked about them quite a bit today. Emery Olauson. Emery, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime you're on a 4-game road trip and you come out of it with 3 wins, you have to feel pretty good about it. Let's start there. Can you just break down the trip from last week and what went right for you guys?
We got a huge goaltending effort up in the Whitney Forum. I thought our team responded really well to an extremely slow start in Larange. It can go that way there the Flin Flon game, we woke up and we're loading the bus at 6:15. So the guys were up at 5:30 in the morning that day on a game day. And then it kind of was like we were living on a bus until we got to Larange, it felt like. Get up there, the guys had a slow start. We're not playing like ourselves. I think we were down 4-1 about 5 minutes into the second period when we kind of just started clicking, and the rest of the second period we were great. And it made for a very, very interesting third period. A day off in PA, but it was not an emotional day off. We had an injury sustained in the end of the Flin Flon game, which turned into be a fractured vertebrae of one of our young guys that I think just it had a big impact on our guys and our staff. Of course, you get shaken from something like that, and most of our off day was spent waiting for news and getting our trainers and our player to the PA hospital and imaging and waiting on results and things like that. And then got to Kindersley, and I thought, both of those games we played okay. We scored enough, but our defense wasn't great. And credit to Kindersley, they brought it, and they were physical. They got to the crease on us and forced our goaltenders to see through not see through a lot of traffic. So overall, I think as a staff here, we're pretty happy with pulling 6 points out of that road trip with, not only how we played, but who was not playing. We had basically Hammond, Zawatsky, Schofer, Coyle, and Johnston all out. So gutsy efforts for sure, finding a way for sure, and 4 hard road games off the schedule with points in our pocket. So we got to be happy with that.
Yeah, for sure. Now, when we talked in our preseason chat, previewing the season, there was a lot of, I'll say, high internal expectations for you guys. You've had a great start to the season. I know, obviously, you've had your fair share of adversity as well, and we can or don't have to get into any of that. But regardless, what's been, in your mind, what's been some of the biggest factors just in terms of this team putting together a solid play on the ice? A lot of wins early on in the season, some big goal numbers, stuff like that. What's been the biggest factors for you?
We trust our depth, and we've got a good. We've got just incredible leadership in the room, and we're not going to talk about the elephant in the room with the forfeitures, but the response to it. There's a ton of adversity. This week was hard. Monday is when our players learned that essentially we lost not only the 3 wins, but the goals for 6 games, and it just is a gut punch. And then, well, wake up in the morning and go play in Flin Flon. Let's see how we do there. Man, I give our guys so much credit for that first win on that road trip, and really starts with Denway Arenas. Of course, that game is Callum Craig's win with 50 or however many shots there was in that game. Callum did a great job. And I think that's what I would chalk our season up to right now is depth, resiliency, and character. Because last year we had the same issue, right? Tate Schofer comes in, he's one of our key players, and he gets hurt early. And I don't think we had the depth to deal with it, and we didn't have the leadership at the start of the year that we needed to overcome that adversity. This year, it's just like, we're taking our medicine, and it's like every single morning we learn of a new injury or someone's going to be out, and it's next man up. And yeah, we're kind of looking through our list here from 18-year-olds or rookie players. We have 72 points. I don't think anyone else has that. We have 44 points from our blue line, 15 games in. That's strong. We've got a first-year goaltender that's 5-1 with a .932 save percentage. Obviously, that's something. So it's just depth. Like we got so many guys chipping in so many different ways, and already on the season we've got 8 players in double-digit points. And again, Zawadzki's not in there, but he's been hurt. He's 1 point off. Coyle's been hurt. He's just off that pace. So I think we're scratching the surface of something, truly remarkable with our goal scoring, and we just gotta, shore up and help our goaltenders out a little bit more. And I think we'll go on another nice run here.
Yeah, for sure. You finally got a couple opportunities at the Highway 10 rivalry. I know, people who've been in this league for a while understand what that was like. Obviously, you were in the SJ years ago, both as a player and a coach before going away and then coming back. So you have a sense about it. But I guess just talk about being a head coach there. A couple of weeks ago you took on Melville, and that must have been pretty special to face, a guy like Doug Johnson's been around for forever. I'm sure you have a lot of respect for each other. That must have been a lot of fun too.
Yeah, it's a cool story being written between the Yorkton Terriers and the Melville Millionaires, and obviously over the last 5 or 6 years, probably both organizations would like to be in better spots. Doug took that challenge on, and man, took him to the playoffs, and obviously probably would like better results in that first round than the sweep by North Battleford. But they've been on a steady incline since Doug got there, and we feel really good about our team too. And I think both communities are firmly getting behind their teams. We had 1,745 people show up in Yorkton to watch that game on a Friday night at the end of harvest. So our crowd support's been great. The cities are real proud of their programs and real proud of their current teams. And I would imagine here in a few weeks when we play Melville again, we're going to start seeing some sellout type crowds, and it's going to be fun to be a part of. And you got to manage emotions, and the hard part is you come out of a weekend like that, and that's where we soaked up a lot of our injuries and have some key guys out. So trying to get through those games a little bit, physically less damaged would probably be nice, but with that amount of emotion in a series, and it's like you're playing with history too. Like the alumni is up in the crowd, and they always have their stories about the way these series used to be, and it's pretty darn close. It's physical. My assistant coach got here from Quebec in preseason. He said, "Well, that didn't take long. I hate Melville." So it doesn't take long, and it's instant, and it's kind of just bred in. It's like you pull on your jersey, and there's just something that goes along with the proximity. And there's battle for sponsors, there's battle for fans, and it's we play them 8 times. So, the rivalry is just automatic.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Clark, I'm going to drag Clark out. We'll go out there for sure at some point
yeah.
this year. We have to, and it'll be a super good time. Got couple more questions, two bit more lighter ones, I guess, right here. And before we get back to the hockey talk, but you talked about the battle for all those things. What's the battle like to get Benny Walchuk out to call your games? Because it seems like, when is that guy around anywhere? I don't even know where he is at any given moment.
Wow.
Yeah, Benny's. You know what? They should rename the cup. Although the Parks Cup is great and that, but I think the winner gets Benny.
That's right.
But yeah, we call Benny a traitor. We know all the information he gets. He brings back to Doug, and we just hope we get some of Doug's secrets out. We always shake his jacket when he doesn't have it on, see if any notes fall out. But no, I mean the whole thing. It's so cool. I mean, Benny calls so many games, and he's part of all this hockey and part of the history. And yeah, I mean, I think Benny in a special way kind of roots both teams on, and it's pretty neat.
Yeah, for sure. And just a quick follow-up, speaking of battles, and this meant a ton to me, and I kind of told the fellas that you and your kids like watching the shows a lot, so we really appreciate that. Which show do your kids like more? Do they like Insider or Weekly more?
Oh, geez, I'll have to ask. Porter will fight bedtime to get in, because obviously right now they're in school, but they'll be home tonight and watch these shows. And yeah, I love the media here. You have a 9-year-old who has access to the NHL. He's watching the Kansas City Chiefs. He's watching all the sports, and these shows are huge. And they know about the players in the league. When we go to different places, because of this show and because of the media going out there, young fans can be fans specifically of the SJHL. And I love it. I tip my hat to you guys. You're doing a great job. And yeah, my kids, they get to stay up late as long as they're watching an SJHL show. I think they like the weekly the best, just because it kind of goes over everybody. But yeah, they're watching them all.
Well, now they're going to like Insider better because Dad's on it. But one thing I will say is, did you hear that, Paul? Paul's my boss. Love that. But I've always said, Emery, and I think you'd agree, you kind of just mentioned it, but I think if fan bases across the league are learning about other teams and other players from other teams, they'll be more invested to go watch those players play at their arenas when they're visiting or when they're on the road trips or whatever as well. So that's why I think it's really important to make sure we try to cover all the teams as much as we can and give every team their spotlight. And obviously the spotlight's on the Yorkton Terriers. And speaking of that, the spotlight was on you guys. You made a big move a couple weeks ago. But now we're getting back onto the ice. But Keenan Ingram's a big roster addition for any team, and you guys were able to add him. He's also on my fantasy team, by the way. So that was an interesting trade. I was excited when he was on Weyburn. I'm excited he's on Yorkton. It works out great. But he was a big get for you guys. What about Keenan seemed like he would be a good fit for your roster?
It's to be honest with you, it was kind of reactionary to the Tate Schofer injury to start out. I'm familiar with Keenan. He won Rookie of the Year in the KIJHL while I was coaching there. He possesses an elite shot for specifically from the outside on the power play, and we felt like we've got a lot of guys that can get up and down the ice well. We got a lot of guys with a lot of speed. What we didn't have is a big body with a big shot from the outside. And when the opportunity arose to add Keenan, we thought, he's going to help our special teams. It's probably been a while now, and our power play's kind of righted itself, largely because we have Keenan on one of the units. But early on, our power play was the worst in the league. And all of a sudden, we're up into the top 5 in both special teams categories. And I think it is just using a different. He's got a different set of tools than most of the players that we currently have. He's a good kid, well liked in the dressing room, all that kind of stuff. And there is trust built in, because when he was 18 years old, he kind of learned the way that I coach and the way that I want to manage the bench and the team. And when I did talk to him, he was all for that same standard and coming in here and trying to help us win, and he's done that, right. He's scoring on the power play. He's actually done very, very well 5-on-5 and found a home in our top 12. And that's kind of the way we talk about it now, because we are getting contribution from all four lines, and when we bring all the Tate Schofer back and the Zawadzki back into the lineup soon, and Hammond soon, and Coyle probably this weekend, we feel like we got a lot of firepower. But he's one of the pieces for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And another guy who's come in and done a great job early on in his SJHL career, Thomas Rees, has come in. He was obviously part of the big trade last year that saw Clay Sleva leave town. You talked about David Coyle several times already. Big trade acquisition in terms of him coming in as an 18-year-old defenseman and making a nice impact early on. Can you talk about what has made his transition to junior hockey so smooth?
Well, even though he's a first-year 18-year-old, he's built like a man. He's probably one of the strongest players in the league. If you took him to the weight room and just compared who's pushing the most weight, I would put my money on Thomas to be at the top. He blocks more shots than anybody in the league, I think. He makes our penalty kill better. He's a tough kid, and the offense has always been there. He was one of those guys. It was mandatory that Thomas Rees be part of that deal. Clay Sleva was a huge ask for Melfort. He's a big reason they won a championship. But what we got in return with Cale Johns, who has yet to play for the Yorkton Terriers, but he's doing a great job down the hallway with the Maulers. David Coyle, who's a scorer at our level, and I think he's gonna. You talk about guys that are going to elevate through 11 games. He's got 8 points, and I think he's better than a point per game player in our league. He's just a little snake bitten, maybe, if you want to call it that, early on. And obviously, Thomas Rees is a big part of that. And we haven't had a defenseman like Thomas here since I've been here. Scotty would say it's been almost a decade since you have that bit of a throwback player. He loves getting hit by the puck. He's a second goalie. He helps his goaltenders out, and he gives a level of confidence to our players, because he's a big, strong kid, and maybe sometimes he doesn't look like the smoothest of skaters, but he's also one of our fastest guys, and he doesn't get beat often. Defends well, and he's got 10 points. So for a first-year player, I think he's tied on our team as far as defensive scoring, with another rookie defenseman, Tyler Palin, but like totally different ways. And I guess I should give both of them credit. I think both of them have 1 point on the power play. They're not even on our power play most of the time. So those are 5-on-5 points that he's getting.
Yeah, of course, Tyler Palin from the hockey mad hotbed of Florida, but we can ask you about that another time, because we're running short on time. But I have 2 quick questions. Well, the first one is a challenge for you, Emery. So are you ready for Nugsy's challenge? We don't have a fancy graphic like Rory's rapid fire, but I have a little challenge for you. Hope that's all right.
Sure.
So you played for 8 pro teams in your playing career. Okay. Can you name them all and in order?
Lubbock Cotton Kings, Rio Grande Valley Killer Bees, Odessa Jackalopes. Oh, no. Oklahoma City Blazers, Odessa Jackalopes. This is where it gets. This is probably around concussion number 4 or 5.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Huntsville,
yeah.
Fayetteville, Knoxville.
Oh, you were 1 off. You missed Amarillo, the Gorillas.
Oh, I did miss Amarillo.
My old buddy John Dean used to play for the Amarillo Gorillas. I don't know if you know that name.
I should never. I remember, and actually spoke to an old teammate of mine from Amarillo in the last 3 or 4 days, so I should remember that. That was a big miss, but good challenge, Nugsy.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Amarillo and John Dean, who's of course the head coach and GM of the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, is also a Gorilla. Quick follow-up question: how's it going with the Theodore Buffaloes? I know great SJHL alums on that team, including Zach McIntyre. You've played 5 games, just a measly 9 points. Not too bad.
You know what? I'd like to actually have someone check the record for the oldest player to play in that league, because it has to be me. I'll finish with a funny story. When I got asked to play for the Theodore Buffaloes, I didn't know that it was hit hockey, and so I agreed. And I get there, and it's like, you guys have a dressing room? That's pretty sweet. And then we get out there and I get hit in the first shift. And it had been one of the guys in the dressing room asked me in the first intermission, how long has it been since you played like hit hockey? And I was like, 11 years. Like you guys could have probably specified this as contact hockey before I agreed to play. But man, you know what? I probably get made fun of a lot, especially in my own home. Like I don't have it like I used to. But I love the game of hockey, and for as long as you can play and be on a team and be like the I guess the luck or whatever, it's an honor to be coached, to have someone take their time. And I mean, I don't know if the Theodore Buffs coaches are trying to make me better, but they're coaching our team to try and win. And that's an honor in itself. And I love the game of hockey. And you know what? I'm 43 years old, and it hurts when I get hit a lot. And I'm quite sore at the end of the game. And my wife almost made me wear a full cage because I almost lost my teeth. I got hit in the playoffs, and we played in Estevan the next night. And I was in the hospital until about 3 a.m. getting stitches on my bottom lip. So, it's crazy. We haven't practiced yet, but I can't wait to get out with the guys.
I saw a picture recently. Was it you who I was talking to of Pat LaFontaine back in the day when it was the Jofa helmets? It was no visor, of course, because it was when it was like the early 80s or whatever. And he had like, those baseball editions that they add on to the helmets that's kind of like a half jaw? It was like one of those, but it was both sides and it combined in the middle. I've never seen it before, but it was like a hard plastic shell with a bunch of foam. You should get one of those, Emery, and just put it underneath your visor. I think it would look really cool.
Well, whenever this gets aired, I'm sure my wife will be on Amazon looking for it.
Just Google Pat LaFontaine, and if you can find it, just a weird helmet. It was hilarious. Yep. I've never seen it before, but it was wild. Emery, do you have one more you want to get into?
No, I'm good.
No, good. Just before we let you go, you talked about it earlier, your goaltending. We talked about it in our preseason chat a month or so ago, whenever that was. You mentioned at the time the excitement for Callum Craig. I remember you kind of waxed poetically about him at the time. But I don't think either one of us saw, like you mentioned earlier, the 5-1 record, the .930 plus save percentage, and not to mention Ethan Farrell's been solid as well when he's been in the net. Just how impactful has your goaltending been for your team this year?
Huge. I mean, if you want to be an offensive team, you have to trust that you're going to be taking risks, and sometimes you need a goaltender to bail you out. And our guys are great. And it's not just the results. It's not just the save percentage. It's the demeanor that they have. They're not coming in yelling at their guys like, stop taking risks, stop jumping in the play. They get it. They get what we're trying to do. They're great teammates. They're both just incredible people, and that's what we try and fill our dressing room with first and foremost is great teammates, and they're both A+ in that regard. I've learned to trust old friends, and Callum Craig's goalie consultant, me and him used to eat worms together on 5th Street in Canmore. So and that's when we were quite young. I quit eating worms when I was around 5. So Justin called me, gave me a scoop on this kid, and I trusted him, and I'm sure glad I did.
Worms, the food of the future, a good source of protein. Emery, thanks for joining us today. As Nugsy said, we're going to be getting down there to the Parkland region before too long to check out a game. And until then, good luck with everything, and we'll chat with you again soon.
Thank you, guys.
All right, that was Emery Olauson, of course, from the Yorkton Terriers, head coach and general manager, and star of the Theodore Buffaloes. 5 games played. Now, there's a guy on that team named Logan Calanchi, who I played baseball against back in the day. So, Emery, if you're still listening, give Logan a hard time next time you see him. Before we go, let's have a look at the upcoming schedule for the weekend. There's no games tonight, but tomorrow there are 4, and I think Saturday there's also 4. LaRange is heading to Melville to the CN Community Center for a 7 o'clock game. We just talked to Emery, of course. He's hosting the Yorkton Terriers, I should say, are hosting the Estevan Bruins in a Viterra Division matchup at 7 o'clock. Notre Dame is on their way to Battlefords. This should be a fun one. And Weyburn is going to Kindersley. That should be a good one. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was Rory McGoran's game to watch of the weekend, Weyburn and Kindersley, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that. I have a fuzzy memory. Monday was a long time ago. Let's look at Saturday here now. As I mentioned, Melville heads to Humboldt. Yorkton and LaRange face off in LaRange, so Yorkton hits the road. Notre Dame again in Battlefords, and Weyburn again in Kindersley. So it's going to be a fun weekend. There's a lot of good matchups there. could see some changes in the standings, as we mentioned, with how close everything is. Nugsy, is there a game on there that you're keeping your eye on, or you just got your brains focused on Notre Dame Battlefords right now?
Yeah, certainly focused on that. I mean, I think, the one thing about the Humboldt Broncos, and Rory's not here to talk about them, so I can take a couple seconds to do so, is that whenever they've had adversity the last couple of years, and by adversity I mean a loss or 2 losses, under Scott Barney, of course, he's not there anymore, but they've done a nice job bouncing back. They were very disappointed with their performance at home against L'Orange in that 7-4 loss. But, I know with the leadership group, including Landon Stromey, who is my subject for Sask Finest on the SJHL website yesterday, they have great leadership, and I'm very interested to see what the Broncos do. But, of course, it's not an easy task with the Melville Millionaires coming. So that should be a very, very interesting one. And, yeah, of course, Kindersley, Weyburn, 2 very fun hockey teams to watch, and I'm sure that'll be a doozy.
Yeah, it should be a great weekend. Really looking forward to seeing how the cookie crumbles after this one.
Yeah.
Make sure you follow us on all of our social media channels. We got a lot going on, including here on YouTube if you're watching, on our podcast platforms, also Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And get your Flow Hockey subscription today. Obviously, if you can't make it to the rink, that's the best way to watch the games and keep your eye on everything. If you aren't subscribed to our YouTube channel, of course, which, again, I say this, we've said this for a while now. Jeremy Corrigan was big on this last year. But we get a lot of our views on YouTube from people who aren't subscribed to our channel. And all you have to do is click the button. You don't have to pay. It's free. So just click the big red subscribe button. If you are watching, or if you tune in and you're like, oh, shoot, I forgot I'm not subscribed, just click the button. It's really easy. But yeah, make sure you follow us. And one big shout out again to our sponsors, of course. That's Borgo, Cantera Seeds, Capital Automall, SGEU, Sask Lotteries, UPL, Chevrolet, Great Western Nutrien, RBC, and Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association. We will be adding to that list shortly, because I don't know if everyone understands how provincial elections work, Nugsy, but certain companies aren't allowed to promote themselves or sponsor things or be in the public eye during election season. So they have, I don't know what the word is. Moratorium's not the right word. But there's a word for
break.
it. A break, yeah. So we're going to be getting some of those sponsors back as of next week. So that'll be good.
Can I just say,
Yeah.
Obviously, congratulations to the Sask party on a victory there, which is fine. Chris Beaudry, of course, former Humboldt Broncos assistant coach, did win his riding.
Oh, good.
For
Job,
the
Chris.
Sask party. So I believe he did. So he'll be an MLA now, which is pretty cool. And Barrett Kropf, of course, really well known in Saskatchewan hockey circles, also won his riding in the Davidson Outlook area. So pretty cool there. Again, congratulations to the Sask party. Congratulations to the NDP, I guess, for raising their mandate as well. This is not Politics Insider, so I'm not going to go too much further. But it was interesting to watch, and sent Barrett, a good buddy of mine, a quick message to say congratulations, and very cool.
I was gifted Barrett's book back in the day. He has a book, Home, what is it? Home...
I have no idea.
Oh, shoot. What's it called? I have to look at it. It's on my shelf at home. But, I got gifted it one time from my good friend Leanne Madsen from Estevan. If you ever gone to a game in Estevan, there's 3 ladies that sit at a table in the lobby handing it. Well, they used to hand out, what am I trying to say? Profile pages and stuff, like roster sheets and stuff like that. It used to be what are the books called? Programs. Jeepers. Holy cow. Anyways, they used to hand out programs. I don't know if they still do, but I saw them there, so I know they still sit there. Audrey, Adele, and Leanne. So if you ever stop in Estevan, they're great ladies. They're a great chat, and they're very fun to talk to. And Leanne gifted me Barrett's book several years ago now. But anyways, just a fun little fact. So keep it locked on sjhl.ca. There is a lot going on in the next week, including the SJHL MJHL combined World Junior A All-Star Showcase, which is going to be next week, of course, in Warman. We will be there. We will be broadcasting from there next week, including the games that will be on Flow Hockey. But there will be some changes to what our broadcast schedule is next week, and etc. So we won't be having SJHL Weekly on Monday. That's the big news that I just want to get out there. It'll be on Tuesday, and we'll be in the rink in Warman at the games. So I think there'll be probably a practice going on behind us while we broadcast the show. But it'll be Tuesday afternoon. A normal time slot for SJHL Weekly just moved one day forward to Tuesday. So we'll be doing that. And then me and Nugsy will be broadcasting the 2 games as well from Mormon, Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. It's a 7:30 game and then an 11:30 game. So stay tuned for that. We'll probably be putting out some content as well. The rosters, everybody's asking about these rosters.
Yeah. We can give him 2 names.
Yeah, we can give you
names.
2 names. We're gonna do it. I know Kyle, if you're
He'll be
listening,
fine.
just turn the show off. Turn it off, Kyle. Kyle
They're 2
McIntyre,
obvious
commissioner
names.
of the SJHL.
They're 2 obvious names. It's
Yeah,
fine.
we're not going to break any crazy news here, Kyle. Jackson Herchak from the Kindersley Clippers is having a fantastic season.
Yep.
He's already committed to Colorado College. He's clearly a star in this league. And Connor Miller, also a star in this league. Humboldt Broncos forward, committed to Augustana University. Those are 2 names to look for. Now, there are, obviously, the roster is still being finalized. They're still in the finalizing process. We've heard some other names. We're not allowed to say anything else, so don't ask. But you don't have to wait very long.
I didn't make it.
Right. Yeah, we didn't make the roster. We were just told about it.
Yeah.
Now, you don't have to wait very long because tomorrow's November 1st, and I think that's when it's all going to be coming out anyways. So you'll hear about it soon enough. We promise. So don't freak out. Don't get mad at us. We'll tell you when it comes to us. We'll let you know. But there are some. It's going to be a very fun roster. It's going to be a very fun couple of days, and it'll be exciting to see them kind of see how they level up against the Manitoba boys. As it always is, fun to get bragging rights, regardless of the event, over the Manitoba boys, when and if possible. So next week, like I said, we will be doing SJHL Weekly from the Legends Event Center in Warman. I believe that's what it's called. So we'll do it on Tuesday afternoon. Rory will be there. I don't know exactly how we're doing it yet, but Rory will be there. Me and Nugsy will be there. We'll see if we can get an interview. It'll be a fun show. A little different than our normal setup. We're not going to have all the bells and whistles, but we'll get you some content regardless and preview the week, preview the games coming up that night and the next day, and we'll have some fun there. We'll be back with a normal episode of SJHL Insider on Thursday. It's going to be a busy week for us, Nugsy, but we'll be back on Thursday. We'll jump in the chairs. We'll get it done. And then there's a lot of hockey coming up when the SJHL resumes that weekend. So lots of stuff coming up. Make sure you stay tuned to sjhl.ca for all the latest information. Jamie, thanks so much for joining me today. The Crusaders, thanks so much for doing what you do on a daily basis. And everyone here at IKS, there they are. Look at those guys. Everyone here at IKS, of course, everyone in the SJHL. It's going to be a fun weekend. 8 games over the next 2 days, so make sure you enjoy the hockey at the rink. But if you can't, check it out on Flow Hockey. And until we see you again, enjoy the hockey, everyone.